life in West Maui remains uncertain, one thing is for sure. Residents are furious over the local government's response. You see, typically, when there's a fire, you use water to put it out. But Maui's Department of Land and Natural Resources delayed the release of water to landowners to help protect their property from the wildfire. In fact, they even disputed the release of water for hours after the West Maui Land Company made a request to release it. Maui survivors are even telling reporters they had to grab water out of their toilets to fend off the flames.
I was grabbing water out of the toilet. I was grabbing water out of my Brita filter in the refrigerator. It's a kind of disconcerting feeling when the fire guys show up and they don't have water.
According to the deputy director of the Department of Land and Natural Resources, Kaleo Manuel, water isn't a tool.
We've become used to looking at water as like something which we use and not necessarily something that we revere. But that's totally different in this Western capitalistic kind of economy that we live in. It's very extractive, individualistic approaches. Let water connect us and not divide us. Like we can share it, but it requires true conversations about equity.
Last time I checked, water puts out fires. Progressive mumbo jumbo doesn't. Water wasn't the only issue during the wildfires that swept through West Maui. Residents had no idea a fire was coming until they stepped outside their homes and saw the flames on their doorsteps.
I did not receive a warning until I was already getting in my truck to get out of there. Not a single one of my roommates got a warning at all. We got, the notice we had was just screaming from the streets.
Many took to social media, begging for answers as to why the local government refused to sound the alarm that a wildfire was rapidly approaching. But the state officials say no regrets.
Do you regret not sounding the sirens?
I do not. The sirens, as I had mentioned earlier, is used primarily for tsunamis.
Officials neglected their duties to protect the people they claimed to represent. They had other priorities. Just like in 2019, when Hawaiian Electric vowed to invest in fire-resistant technology, and instead they invested nearly $85 million in climate change policies, like divesting from oil and investing in renewables. Now that same company is under heavy scrutiny over indication that its power lines may have ignited the wildfires that has now taken over 100 lives. And the people of the once beautiful town of Lahaina, many of them are left to fend for themselves and their neighbors with very little answers and a whole lot of miscommunication. And now they have to fight off vulture capitalists from tricking people into buying their property.
Some of the things that's already been happening is realtors are calling families who lost everything, offering them to buy their property and their home for pennies on the dollar, just pennies on the dollar. So it's pretty offensive to us that people won't even give us the time to grieve properly.
Greedy vulture capitalists aren't the only ones eyeing Lahaina property. Vulture bureaucrats are peeking around the corner too.
Some people may feel the need to relocate, and I'm already thinking about ways for the state to acquire that land so that we can put it into workforce housing, to put it back into families, or to make it open spaces in perpetuity as a memorial to people who were lost.
Mark Morano is the publisher of The Climate Depot and the author of The Great Reset, and he joins us now. Mark, always great to have you on the show. You heard the words of the governor of Hawaii. What does that tell you?
Well, the words come to mind of never let a crisis go to waste. I mean, it's kind of disconcerting to hear the governor talk about the government coming in to buy up lands. He later clarified that to say that they were going to just use the government to protect it from, equity asset purchases. The whole scenario here of it's a comedy of woke eras from beginning to end. The idea that you can't get water released to put out fire because you have to have a conversation about equity first. The idea that you can't focus on making cables safer because Hawaii was the first state of the entire United States to declare itself carbon neutral or net zero by 2045 as they're patting themselves on the back, and the grid operators are worried about the green energy instead of shoring up the energy which they've been multiple times warned about that needed to be shored up to fight wildfires, the land management issues, all of these areas. And yet the Washington Post, Rachel, will still come out and say climate came for Maui and it's coming for you next. I mean, they're still doing this climate boogeyman as the cause of this and not the gross mismanagement from A to Z here.
So some reporters on the ground from ABC saw the situation and saw that there were just some
Yes.
really obvious errors made by government officials who should have known better. And they had a headline that basically stated that. It says, why climate change can't be blamed entirely for the Maui wildfires. Because, of course, we know as soon as there's a wildfire, the climate people come in and say that, you know, it's all green, you know, global warming. But they saw what happened. They were on the ground. They put that out. And then what happened after they put up that headline and that story?
First of all, it was a fantastic story coming from ABC News. They quoted the governor saying this was a fire hurricane that caused this. And then ABC News says the obvious. There's no such thing as a fire hurricane. It was like a mic drop. This outraged the climate activists so much. Professors, climate activists, they were using F-bombs on Twitter, going after ABC News. They had to take out climate change wasn't responsible, add the word entirely, completely back off the major elements of the story because the science police came in and said, you can't go with that narrative. This was the corporate media bowing to the Green New Deal activists. And it was an amazing sight to see because ABC News actually did real climate journalism for a change and then quickly had paid dearly for it.
Yeah, this is how Big Green gets, quote unquote, consensus. They bully everyone, threaten them with all kinds of things. Are you afraid of this being used as a climate emergency, a climate lockdown? I know you've been warning about that happening, you know, in the very near future.
I mean, we already have the Green New Deal Network using the Hawaiian fires in Maui to urge Joe Biden to declare a national climate emergency. That would give him, according to Center for Biological Diversity, 130 new executive powers, a la COVID, where they could literally bypass democracy once again. That is the end goal. They're weaponizing every single weather event, and they're not taking responsibility to prevent something like this in the future. Instead, it's the boogeyman of climate, and we need more mandates and we need more emergency powers. And if Joe Biden gets this, we are looking at a very restrictive culture.
Well, Mark Morano, you're always raising the flags, warning us of what's to come. I'm afraid you're right on this one.
Climate lockdowns be on the horizon? According to Nigel Farage, the answer is yes.
So tell us what's going on in London. How crazy is it getting? They're trying to stop you from driving? Burning wood?
So here's the background. The background, of course, is all about climate change and pollution added onto that. Over the course of the last few years, Mayor Sadiq Khan of London has made most of central London 20-mile-per-hour speed limits. I'm not joking, it's 20 mph, even on dual roads in most of London. Speed cameras are being installed every single day of the week, and even at 2 o'clock in the morning. If you're doing 23 miles per hour, you will get flashed, you will get penalty points and a fine. Then they introduce low traffic neighborhoods, which means they literally block off some roads and make them pedestrian. All of which means the traffic gets worse, congestion gets worse, and hey, guess what? Pollution goes up. But that doesn't stop them. Then they've got the concept here of what's called a 15-minute city. That if you drive more than 15 minutes from your home, you'll have to start paying tolls and charges to do so. So all of this has been going on as, by the way, they build cycle lanes. They turn dual roads into one-lane roads with a cycle lane on the side, which for 20 hours a day is used by virtually nobody. And then this Tuesday, Mayor Khan says, the air quality in London today is going to be poor. And that's because summer has finally arrived on our little island. All right? So he says, please don't use your car unless it's absolutely necessary. Do not let your car idle. Do not burn wood, and so on and so forth. Now, if I'd said to you 4 years ago that we'd be locked down because of a flu-like virus that had come from China, you would not on this program have believed me. And I'm telling you here and now that in the name of climate change, in the name of pollution, we will, certainly in London, within the next few years, have a period when the mayor says, you must not use your car at all, and air quality is so bad, you must stay at home. But if you do have to go to work, please use the subway. And by the way, the air quality on the subway is so bad, some days it's dangerous. This isn't about pollution. Nope. It isn't about climate change. It's about controlling our lives. We're becoming like China. And don't think it won't come to you, because it will.
It's the same panic peddling and the same hysteria hustling that they used to frighten people into silence and compliance during COVID. Fear equals control, and control equals power, and nobody should buy it, Nigel. No one.
The way fear was used during the lockdown was extraordinary. Millions of our elderly people shut themselves in their homes, shut themselves off from their kids, their grandkids, from their neighbours, their friends, because government advertisements were telling them, if you leave your front door, you might die. They did it with COVID, and they'll do it with climate, and they'll do it with pollution. And the worrying thing about this is how few so-called conservative politicians and commentators are prepared to stand up to it.
Yep.
That's the thing that really worries me the most.
You know, it's fascinating. You have people that are born free that are so willing to give up their freedoms to accept mandates that are crazy, to drive 20 miles an hour. Maybe they want you to ride a little scooter bike. More people have to stand up to this, and he's right. Parties have to push back on these crazy environmentalists.
It's because those conservatives who won't stand up are part of the elite. That's why, because the rules don't apply to them. It's all, it's a big club.
Remember a writer called Michael Crichton. He was a force in American entertainment. He was a novelist, he was a movie producer, turned out a ton of top films and best-selling books, The Andromeda Strain, Jurassic Park, et cetera, et cetera. But he was also, and this is less remembered, a political philosopher and a very wise one. 20 years ago, before he died, Michael Crichton delivered a talk in San Francisco about the climate crisis. And he described climate activism in that speech as the religion, not a political movement, a religion for urban atheists, for people who rejected every aspect of Judaism and Christianity. Climate activists had, without saying so out loud, created a religion. All the features you would recognize in any conventional religion. Well, not many political theories age well, even over 20 years, but Michael Crichton's has. As church attendance and self-identified religious faith have fallen off a cliff in this country, the cult of climate has grown even stronger. Now, even the President of the United States is warning that the world is ending. Unless we pass the Green New Deal and legalize abortion until the moment of birth, Joe Biden says climate change will destroy the world. You'd better pass the Democratic Party's agenda. If you don't, you are joining, quote, the single most existential threat to humanity you've ever faced, including nuclear weapons. It's code red. Watch.
That's what climate change is about. It is literally, not figuratively, a clear and present danger. The health of our citizens and our communities is literally at stake. The UN's leading international climate scientists call the latest climate report nothing less than, quote, code red for humanity. Let me say it again. Code red for humanity. And making the largest investment ever, $2.3 billion to help communities across the country build infrastructure that's designed to withstand the full range of disasters we've been seeing up to today. Extreme heat, drought, flooding, hurricanes, tornadoes.
Decades ago, it used to be one or two a season would happen. Now with climate change and these extreme warm waters, it's almost, it's happening all the time.
This storm, in a way, is kind of bad news for the people that are still trying to deny climate change as a fact.
Florida Republicans deny climate change as a monster storm barrels towards the coast.
This will be a first-time test for how you adapt to these new, stronger storms on a warmer planet as a result of climate change.
The threat exacerbated, of course, by climate change.
Charleston, like Miami, gets water that comes up on a good sunny day. That's climate change because water levels are rising.
Our Earth is getting warmer, and there is just no doubt, I think, left that it is feeding these beasts.
So that's not science, that's theology. You just saw like 8 people in a row who know nothing about anything. None of those people are scientists or meteorologists or even effective weathermen. They're political actors and they're making it up. So once again, whatever this is, it is not science by definition, it's religion. But despite the fact the Constitution prohibits the US government from having a state religion, that now is our state religion. What else are you allowed to have in the name of the climate crisis? Well, how about no more heat or air conditioning or electricity or cars or wearing leather or eating meat or having children? All are sins against the climate. So for you, it is insects, tap water, and celibacy. That's a tough religion. Even John the Baptist got to eat honey and locusts. No more honey for you. We're beyond self-denial. We're in the next phase.
A 15-minute city mean, basically a neighborhood where you can reach everything you need within a 15-minute foot walk. A doctor, grocery store, and so forth. However, if you now fancy another store and it does not happen to be in your neighborhood, you won't be going to that store anymore. Total control is what we're talking about. Once they decide you're no longer allowed to leave your 15-minute immediate area, they don't have to fence it in or anything. It will be done via digital ID.
With the social credit system, kind of
Something like
maintaining
that.
compliance.
Yes. And there's pilot projects already going on in Bologna. It's called the Bologna Wallet. And in Vienna, it's called the Vienna Token. It's voluntary for now. And it's only pretty much enticing people to get some ticket for a little less or something like that to go to theater, something like that. But soon there will be a time you don't have a choice anymore. You have to have this digital green certificate, this QR code, whatever.
When the deception comes, if you're not a born-again believer, you'll be swept away with it. The deception will be greater than you ever imagined in your life. It is going to be profound as to what happens. People in the high places are Satanists, they're Illuminati. Spiritual power in high places that will bring about a one-world government. And by doing that, they intend to rule the world. And they have the help of a whole mass of demonic spirits who are able to perform all kinds of miracles, deceptive miracles, manifestations, and all of this stuff to help them to bring about that one world government. And the goal is so that they can put one man up and worship him as God, the Antichrist.
Any student of the Bible, especially one interested in eschatology, is well aware there are several prophecies found in the book of Revelation regarding the mark of the beast. Indeed, throughout history, many have speculated on what this mark will actually be and how these prophecies will ultimately be fulfilled. During these most recent times, there has been an increased interest in the topic, with a great many scholars and ministries having committed an incredible amount of research and study trying to predict how this most cryptic of prophecies will be accomplished.
Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. Also it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is, the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Many people have been driven to wild speculations and great fear because of these famous words in the book of Revelation. But our claim is that Revelation is a book of hope and contains God's promises for suffering people. How is it possible to understand the mark of the beast in this light? The first thing is to understand who this beast is. John describes two beasts, not just one. The first beast comes out of the sea and is made out of multiple parts of different animals, a lion, a bear, and a leopard, and it has 10 horns coming out of its heads. This beast is not a new idea in the Bible, but is a reference to an older part. In Daniel chapter 7, the Bible describes 4 different beasts also coming up out of the sea, a lion, a bear, a leopard, and a strange-looking beast with 10 horns. Far from being a mystery, Daniel makes it clear that these beasts represent kingdoms, political powers that would rule over the world at different times. In Daniel's case, these beasts were Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Throughout the Bible, the sea is often a symbol of chaos and monstrous power. And in this case, the beast that rises out of the sea is exactly that, a chaotic and violent power that rules the world. John, the author of Revelation, lived during a time when the Roman Empire ruled the world, and the vision he describes suggests that the first beast from the sea has something to do with Rome and the way they encapsulated the worst tendencies of all the empires before them. The second beast looks more like a lamb and comes from a different place, the earth, which suggests this beast may seem to be Christian in appearance and rise up from a different place than the source of powers of the old world. This second beast will reinforce the systems created by the first beast, and will cause the world to worship the first beast, and will enforce the mark of the beast. So what is this mark? Many have tried to assign numbers to alphabets in different languages and find names of human individuals whose names might add up to 666. But the Bible never tells us to do this, nor does it tell us what language the name of the beast is in. Rather, the numbers have a symbolic value. First, the numbers 6 and 60 are strongly tied to Babylonian culture and religion, and John makes it clear in Revelation 17 that the beast's power is a spiritual continuation of Babylon, the kingdom that rebels against God and terrorizes people. Secondly, the number 6 is just short of the number closely associated with God, 7. The number 7 is the number that marks God as the unique divine creator who made the world in the 7 days of creation. 666 is the number of man, or humanity, because it represents falling short of God's perfection and glory. It's a symbol of humanity refusing to step into the fullness of God's goodness, and instead falling short and failing to live up to God's expectations. The great kingdoms that John describes in Revelation have done and will do exactly this. Revelation 13 tells us that God sees the violence and suffering that human political powers inflict upon his world. It reminds us that the suffering in this world does not come from God, but from the people using their power in evil ways. It reminds people who believe in God to be patient and endure, in hopes that God will complete his mission, that Jesus will return and bring justice and judgment against these powerful kingdoms and their evil rulers. Therefore, rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to you, O earth and sea,
Revelation 6.
for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he
And I
knows
saw when
that
the
his
Lamb
time
opened one of the
is short.
seals,
The devil's time is short.
and
The
I
powers
heard,
of
as
evil
it were, the
will soon
noise
be
of
defeated.
thunder. One of the 4 beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say,
A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt's not the oil and the wine.
And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say,
Come and see.
And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death. And hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beast of the earth. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God, and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto every one of them. And it was said unto them, that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren, that should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it was rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places, and the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every freeman hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come. And who shall be able to stand?